You know, this frustrating feeling that comes from working with somebody who you need to receive information from, but they just don't want you. Any kind of communication, email, phone, SMS, and whatnot is just completely being ignored, and your project deadline is getting nearer and nearer. And this can drive anybody who is dealing with any type of project up the wall. Over the past 20 years, I've been working with hundreds and hundreds of external service providers, whether they are musicians, dancers, performance teachers, audiovisual people, designers, venue owners, catering, you name it. And my ability to get information from them in a timely manner was one of the key factors that helped me create successful events. And in this video, I want to share with you 5 strategies that has helped me a lot in the process of getting timely responses. Now, these strategies enhances your chances to get timely responses. They don't guarantee getting timely responses because you have control of everything that is within your boundary of control and not what's on the other side of the other person's boundaries of controls, meaning you can't make the other person do something, but you can stack the cards to increase the chances that they want to do it for you. The first strategy I want to share with you is related to a recent post I shared on social media where I talked about how you can just improve your ability to be in time in meetings, classes, and performances and so on by just mentally changing what the time anchor is, right? Instead of thinking about the time you need to be in class, you want to think about the time you want to leave the apartment or house or sit in the car or whatnot. And basically, if you provide a better time anchor to these service providers, then the chances for you to get the response in time increases. So instead of saying our event starts on 7th of June, can you please send me the documents I need before that? That is not a great time anchor to set. Rather, you want to find an excuse to set a much earlier timeline. So if you're working with performers, artists, speakers, for example, you can say, hey, we're going to have this big promotion coming up. And if you give me your information before this early date, then we have a chance to include you into that promotion, right? So obviously, like with catering, with the audiovisual and different other type of service providers, you need to find different kind of time anchors, but your ability to be creative and strategic with how you establish the time anchors for the different service providers can significantly increase your ability to get the information in a timely manner. The second strategy I want to share with you is that you understand that you need to be as respectful of the other service providers' time as you want them to be of yours. For example, I've been teaching internationally at workshops for the past 15 years. And so I've been working with a lot of other organizers. And in this case, I'm the service provider. So I've been on both sides of this situation where some organizers do this thing where they send one email like, oh, I need a promo photo. So I send them the promo photo. Then like, oh, to buy your flight, I need your passport information. Oh, how about your food preferences? Of course, this was really annoying for me as a service provider. So what I did, I made a compendium and then made a folder where all this information is there. So whenever somebody made a request, I just right away upfront send them everything I knew they'll need to help them, because especially in this industry, not everybody are professional event creators and organizers, so they just don't know. So I help them with this, but not all service providers think that like this. I do that because I've been on both sides of the whole table, but you don't want to have 50 emails being sent to them back and forth. You need to bundle all your knowledge and needs or requests into one piece of information. So you need to think about, before you even start the first request, you want to see like from cradle to grave of the event, from the start to all the way to after the event. For example, with invoicing, you want to understand what information do you need from this person and have it all settled in one go. Meaning you send one email and you request for all those informations. I need all of these things from you, right? It might sound counterintuitive, but the interruption is the thing that is really frustrating. So I rather, as a service provider, sit down once for half an hour, or I probably have a bunch of this information ready. So I just do that in one go, rather than ongoingly for the past next 3 weeks or 3 months or 5 months or whatnot. I'm going to constantly come back to this person with another email and another email. That's really annoying. There is no email too. But another alternative strategy is that you have one email where you might or might not include the full request of things, but the main point of that email is to try to find digital meeting. You want to schedule a meeting time where you sit in person with that person digitally to try to collect all the information. Or it can be in person if you meet at a different conference or event, or if you're in the same city. But basically, whatever way you can do to reduce the interruption pattern, that is the main thing you want to get out of it. Strategy 3 is about trying to do your best to do the job for them, especially in the moments where your deadline is really approaching and you're not getting the information you want. So instead of taking a bunch of negative approaches I'm going to talk about later, what you can do is to try to provide your best attempt of solving it yourself. So instead of saying, hey, I've been waiting for that bio and promo picture, you can say, would this bio I wrote for you and this profile picture be suitable? Can you give me a thumbs up or thumbs down? It can mean that you have to sort of look at their digital footprint, like what's their LinkedIn profile saying, what's their Facebook, social, Instagram and Twitter account says about their history, and you write that bio. Yes, more work for you, but it has a lot of benefits for your deadline. And also later we'll talk about other benefits this brings to you. If you work in a deadline-driven industry, becoming an expert in nonviolent communication will be like a superpower. I can't express enough how important this skill has been for me and my ability to get my projects through. And I didn't have it. And I didn't start with it. I had a lot of personal challenges with communication strategies that has backfired immensely to me. But one of the programs that really made a huge difference in my ability to approach these situations differently was a program I went through. I mean, I worked with this program for 2.5 years, and I'm still actually actively doing it, called Positive Intelligence. And one of the things this program helps you is to understand that we each have a few different saboteurs that we deal with. And these saboteurs are the negative side of a good trait. Like, for example, I have a hyperachiever personality, meaning I want to make something happen that is very difficult and I go for it. But there is a negative side of this. And sometimes when I want it really, really badly, a saboteur in me comes out. And what this saboteur can do is to objectify the other person who I need in order to achieve the thing, right? And of course, nobody want to be objectified. So it puts a wrench in the relationship that is really hard to recover from. And if you want to do the positive intelligence training, I highly recommend you to reach out to Christina Arras, who was my coach in this process. She does it in English and German. They just recently launched a whole new version of this that is promising to have a lot of improvements from the edition I did. So it couldn't be a better time to take actions on that one. So make sure you email Christina to see if you can join this training. The problem is when you don't have this and you get all this negative energy balled up in you, what happens is you turn towards comments like, if you don't do this, there will be future consequences. Boy, did I step on this mine for one of the events. And it still bothers me to this day. And every time I think about this event, this is actually one of the first thing that comes to my mind, because it just left for a forever dark mark in my career as an organizer. And nobody wins from it. Okay. And it doesn't matter how much in the right you are. Yeah. I still feel I was right, but it doesn't help the negative mark. And, or things like, if you don't do this for me, I won't do that for you. I came to you because you're supposed to be a professional. Please get your shit together. I shouldn't have said that. Please get your S together. It seems like my business is not important enough for you. If the amount you're charging, based on the amount you're charging, I expect that you give me answers much quicker. You know, all of these, I mean, obviously they are negative. Like, but people are using these sentences or versions of this more or better or worse disguised. Yeah. I want to give you a few positive approaches, but the thing about the positive approach is something I learned about leadership and self-deception, where this is a fantastic book. If you haven't read it, absolutely study it and really embody the lessons of this, because it's really not about what you say. And you don't need to be a softballer. You don't need to reduce your standards. You don't need to avoid holding people accountable. It's about how you see the other person when you're making those comments and requests and demands. In the book, they talked about two perspectives, being in the box or outside of the box. And this is not creativity thing where think outside of the box sort of thing. Unfortunately, it's the same terminology, but a completely different thing. In the box, meaning that you see the world from a filter that you have set onto it. that doesn't reflect the reality. The things you hear are translated into something most likely negative and doesn't reflect what the other person says. And also, importantly, from inside of the box, you see the other person as an object that is hindering you rather than a human being they are. So you need to find an emotional state that puts you outside of the box, see the situation as is, and continuously have a conversation with the other person with their humanity present in your mind, right? Which means while you're communicating, you don't allow yourself some of these backhanded comments like you're supposed to be a professional. Obviously, my business doesn't mean enough for you and stuff like that. These things are in the box sort of comments. Now, if you manage to be out of the box, good strategies are, for example, reframing with shared responsibility. How can we handle this? How can we make this better? What can I do to support you in this thing? How can I help you? This goes back a little bit to that strategy where you could maybe even take over some of the work and just give them a selection of things and just tell me which one is your preferred version. And you have to do the work, but that's sometimes what it takes. Emphasizing mutual benefits or value for them without also trying to sneak in how it can hurt them if you don't do it, right? This is, again, like, you can use all the right words, but when you write them from inside of the box perspective, the other person feels and hears the consequence of the whole thing. And that's the thing that you can't avoid if you cannot first put yourself in a better state of mind. Offer your time, have a meeting where you handhold the person through the process of preparing the information you need. Sometimes it's ridiculous, feeling wise at least, but again, what can make the process move forward while you being the person who are positively supporting that to happen rather than being the person with a whip who trying to make it happen. I marked ask their circle a little bit in a different color to sort of point out that this is a really, really sensitive one because you don't want to have any risk that the other person loses face within their circle of friends and network just because you're not getting the information you need from them, right? Because that can absolutely destroy any sort of will for collaboration now and long term. For the last strategy, it's about the long game, okay? And this is something, if you urgently need something to happen, some of the early strategies are more suitable, but for the long term, if you always take this idea that it is your fault, it is actually a good thing. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but it's actually to your benefit. And the things I'm about to share, I have a little trigger warning sort of thing here because it's not because I don't understand your situation. There is absolutely many situations that is not your fault. The other person is really being an incredibly difficult person to work with, but it doesn't serve you to dwell on that too much because it's still your project that you're trying to get through. So the things I'm going to share, know that I know that it is not your fault, but take it as your fault because it's better for you. Start earlier. I mean, if this doesn't trigger people, then I don't know what, because a lot of time it's not our fault that we couldn't start earlier, right? There is many reasons for it. Idea came from the other person too late, but they still really insist that it's going to happen. So we're just on the right for it. If we are a agency, the organizer came to us last minute, and now we have a really tight deadline, and we have to deal with it, but we accepted it, and so on. So there are many reasons why it's not your fault, but take it as your fault and see what you can to make these things happen early and earlier. So year over year, you get better at do this earlier. And for example, for our biggest events, we start the organizing, I mean, even earlier than 12 months before, right? So it really gave us all the timeline we needed in order to be able to get all the different project steps in order. This is an interesting one. Get the information you need when you have the chance to get it, rather when it's convenient. So if you have, again, a little bit of this foresight, you have a little bit longer timeline, then there are plenty of opportunities where certain service providers, that you have access to certain service providers, whether it's a casual conversation, whether you bump into each other at another event or conference or workshop, and there, try to just get most of the information you need, especially the best way of reaching to them. Ideally, for example, a WhatsApp connection or a phone number, obviously, something like that. So you want to, maybe even if you're still not sure, just like, hey, I might want to do this and maybe we want to work together. Can I get your number? And just to have it, right? This is going to make a big difference in your ability to get the information in time. Build a stronger relationship with the people you plan to work with. Fortunately, in my case, because I was both the organizer and I also was a traveling international teacher, it allowed me to build relationships with a lot of the artists, especially that I wanted to work with for my events. So it helped me to build strong relationships with people over time. So it was just easier for me to get an answer, status wise, friendship wise, support wise. It just made things easier. The same thing goes with media and design people. Like when I met them at different events, I built a strong relationship with them, and this allowed me to just make the whole process much easier for me. And then this obviously also raised my status in the community. So it more and more, when people had positive experiences with me, I became a person people wanted to work with, and that just made it easier for me to get through to people, get answers in time. Like my emails and messages and outreach had more weight in these situations. But also, they build a strong relationship with the people in their circle. And this is a tricky one because I've experienced several times where I have a great relationship with somebody. They come to me, they're super nice, they're super responsive. But then I hear from my team, like that person has been a complete ass towards them and really disrespectful, really negative, really cold towards the different people in my team because they didn't see them as high status as me. And obviously, like that's a no-go. Like I won't have this energy in my house, so to say. So I won't work with this person. I won't promote this person, and I won't do this because it's the same thing. For example, when you're trying to reach the CEO of a company and you pick up the phone and you talk to the secretary and you treat the secretary like second class, it's just not acceptable. It's just not helping you in so many different ways. Treat humans, like be outside of the box, like I talked about leadership and self-deception. You want to live outside of the box as much as possible. Treat people like the human beings they are, and that reputation will go true and true, and people will notice it. So the problem is obviously that you're sort of stuck in a dilemma. That means that in order for you to build a lot of these reputations and status in the community, you have to have created a bunch of these things, but you also need the same people in order to create a bunch of these things, right? So it's a little bit of a catch-22 situation. So how do you break yourself free from that? And the first thing you need to do is, unfortunately, inject much more energy into the system, meaning you have to work just that much harder. And obviously, this is unfortunate from the perspective that you probably are already working hard and feel like you're working hard, but unfortunately, you need to work even harder. For example, one way you work harder is to do some of the work that belongs to the other person for them, and you still pay them and you still give the credit to them, right? But it just makes you a sort of the kind of person people want to work with. And over time, you can leverage that status to actually let the ball be on their court and ask them to do their thing and trust that it will come in time, and they want to bring it in time because they want to be with you. This comes back to the nonviolent communication, where there's a quote by Viktor Franklin saying, between stimulus and response is your values, is your ability to exercise your values. And what does that mean? Stimulus and responses. A stimulus can be, for example, the fact that you've been stonewalled and your emails haven't been responded for 3 times in a row, and you eventually get a response, but they actually leave out an important key, and you're like, oh, they left this out, and you press reply and you start answering it with your crocodile brain, okay? Which means the stimulus was the information that you needed was left out. Response is reply, answer, right? But if that gap is low, you don't have a chance to exercise your desire for having nonviolent communication strategies, right? Or desire to be outside of the box. The shorter that gap is, the harder it is to take a pause, breathe, stimulate the values you want to have, and then approach from an outside of the box perspective, from a humanity first, nonviolent communication perspective. And again, not by being softer. None of these things is about lowering your standards and being more tolerant for very bad behavior, but it's still the way you communicate, the words you choose make a very different response, whether they agree with you and collaborate with you, or they get triggered in turn and just respond even worse back to you, right? So you get into a negative loop. So meditations, positive intelligence training, one of the main concepts of that was finding different strategies to increase the gap between stimulus and response. That's one of the things that really made it valuable for me. No matter what, you want to leave people better than you found them, okay? And sometimes some people don't technically deserve it because they've been really difficult to work with. It almost feels like you don't want to pay them because it's been just such a nightmare to deal with. You have to absorb a lot of this energy and leave people better than you found them, okay? If you don't, it's gonna be one of those dark marks on your career and personality that you'll think about just as much as they'll think about for a very long time to be, right? And again, it doesn't matter if you're right or not, right? This is the hard part of the whole thing. There is a quote, I think it's Zig Ziglar, who said, you can get anything you want as long as you first help enough other people to get what they want, right? So if you always become a person who give more than you receive, you will have a really powerful word of mouth reputation within the different circles you are in. And this is not just from the customer perspective, the guests of the event, but it's also the service providers. They talk amongst each other. When your event comes up, when your project comes up, they will have, you want them to have nothing but good stuff to share about you and your personality in this process and how you go far beyond and above in order to make the relationship good and make the experience comfortable and good. And finally, all of this feeds into your personality and brand, meaning a positive sort of vortex of good energy is gathered around you, and it will suck in more and more people who want to be in that circle, want to be working with you, who want to deliver information to you in a timely manner. And this takes time, right? Building this reputation, building the status to be in that position takes time. And it starts with just injecting more energy into the whole thing and you not putting wrenches in the system by tapping into, well, by letting your crocodile brain take over and have a lot of bad type of communication. So these skills together with these strategies I presented here today with you can really make a big difference for your ability to get information from people in a timely manner. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please do the usual social media stuff, subscribe, share, like, and especially comment. That goes a long way. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.